Hello? Hello? Is anybody freaking there? Sorry, you guys probably might hear sheep through this because he's playing some exceptionally uh very tense games of Street Fighter, I'm assuming. So he's really into it. So we might we might hear him in the back. Just a little bit. Anyways, hi guys. What do you think of my set piece? Do you guys like my freaking set piece? I worked very hard on it last weekend. That's you guys. Do you guys like the ambiance? I wanted it to feel weird. I wanted it to be really unnerving. I wish the bed were more comfy. There's pillows there for you. I don't know how much more comfy I can make it for you. I'm sorry. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Anyway, well, hello. That's soft wood. It's soft wood. I did some more updates to my model. I don't know if you guys can tell. I'm moving a little bit differently. This might just be. This is more updates for me, because I wanted to have some more fluidity to my model. Only those keen of eye probably noticed. I made some very, very slight adjustments. It's mostly just like, I cleaned up my mouth keys, my mouth blend shapes a little bit, and then also my movement. I learned that if instead of putting your movement shapes on, this is gonna be like so fucking nerdy for anybody who doesn't give a shit about how Live 2D works. Instead of putting movement directly on like angle X, Y, and Z, you put them onto physics keyforms, and then you clip those physics keyforms onto the actual movements, and for some reason it just looks way smoother. It's so weird. I don't know why it works that way, but it looks so much nicer now. The chains move. The chains have always moved. I don't know if you guys knew that. Those have always been. I literally just a little bit of adjusting. Worksat, hello, welcome. You're just on time. We haven't even started yet. Your mouth is kind of moving a lot smoother now. I have no idea where that came from. I just added in like one more key, or not even a keyframe, blend shape, and it looks a lot nicer now. I don't know why. Wood? What? Well, wood. I'm glad you could make it too. But yeah, guys, we're reading my all-time fucking favorite. Oh, okay, wait, there's one more thing that I need to show you guys about this set piece that I think is gonna be really... Oh, wow. Oh, okay. There's one more thing to this set piece that I think you really like. Let me just double check to make sure it's layered correctly. It is. Okay, check this out. So, I was inspired. So as some of you may know, I grew up in Japan, for most of my childhood, and I had, since we lived in a foreign country, but I was going to an American school, we have, specials teachers called culture teachers, and they would, pretty much just tell us about the culture of Japan and everything like that. And one of them, my guy, Mr. Kumagai. I love Mr. Kumagai. Mr. Kumagai, he would always tell us folk tales, and the way that he would tell them to us is like the best. Like, they always stick with me. Is he would draw on the board the characters, and then he would tell the stories, and they were always so like super over the top and dramatic and awesome. And I love my guy, Mr. Kumagai. It was awesome. So here's what the set piece can do. So as I read to you guys, look at this. You see it? This is an homage to my guy, Mr. Kumagai. I could draw on the wall here, so you guys could see what's going on. Oh, it's kind of fucked up looking. Hold on. You guys want to know what I had to search up to get this background? Liminal bus stop, and it was literally the perfect fucking picture for this. This Rusty, no, not Pete, Rusty. He's gonna be our hero for today. On the wall. Why did you draw him? Why? What do you mean? Do the Fleabag's elbow and bother each other after a bit? No, they just kind of stick there. Maybe eventually I'll start having them move around. Warriors is the gateway drug to so many things, all of which involve some kind of edgy phase. That's right. And you're so right to say that. Who's a boy kisser? No! This man is straight. This is the straightest cat you're ever gonna see. In fact, he's so straight when he... Spoilers, by the way. Spoilers for this book that's been out for almost 20 years. After he gets Cat married, he has dreams of his childhood crush woman. Have one go to the bathroom? Oh, that'd be really cute, yeah. Yeah. That's gonna be our hero, Mr. Kumagai. That's Kumag... G-A-I? Kumagai? I think that's how you spell it. He's awesome, I love that guy. But anyway, yeah. I'm gonna read to you guys today. I tagged this ASMR. I don't know if this is gonna be very ASMR. We're gonna try something that's very new for me, and that's be chill. Which is gonna be very difficult for me. So we're gonna try and be chill. I don't know if this would count as ASMR, but fucking whatever. What the fuck ever. And then we're gonna yeah. Are you guys ready? Are we ready? He comes back with a sandwich, and there clearly wasn't the sound of the bathroom sink. He did not wash his little grippers. Yeah, those little sticks, those little skewers that he has. Little Fleabag skewers. Anyways, I need a verbal confirmation. Is everybody ready? Is everybody comfy? Is everybody ready? Ready to rock and roll? This changed my freaking life. This is the first time I read this was 2019. I never read the books when I was a child. Okay, this is gonna be Warrior Cats or Warriors into the Wild by Aaron Hunter. Yay! Okay, here we go. Prologue. A half-moon glowed on the smooth granite boulders, turning them silver. The silence was broken only by the ripple of water from the swift black river and the whisper of trees in the forest beyond. There was a stirring in the shadows, and from all around lithe, dark shapes crept stealthily over the rocks. Unsheathed claws glinted in the moonlight. Wary eyes flashed like amber. And then, as if on a silent signal, the creatures leapt at each other, and suddenly the rocks were alive with wrestling, screeching cats. At the center of the frenzy of fern claws, a massive dark tabby pinned a bracken-colored tom to the ground and drew up his head triumphantly. "Oakhart," the tabby growled. "How dare you hunt in our territory? The Sunning Rocks belong to Thunder Clan. After tonight, Tiger Claw, this will just be another River Clan hunting ground." The bracken-colored tom spat back. A warning yowl came from the shore, shrill and anxious. "Look out! More River Clan warriors are coming." Tiger Claw turned to see the sleek, wet body sliding out of the water below the rocks. The drenched River Clan warriors bounded silently up the shore and hurled themselves into battle without even stopping to shake the water from their fur. The dark tabby glared down at Oakhart, You may swim like otters, but you and your warriors do not belong in this forest. He drew back his lips and showed his teeth as the cat struggled beneath him. The desperate scream of a ThunderClan she-cat rose above the clamor. A wiry RiverClan Tom had pinned the brown warrior flat on her belly. Now he lunged toward her neck, with jaws still dripping from his swim across the river. Tigerclaw heard the cry and let go of Oakheart. With a mighty leap, he knocked the enemy warrior away from the she-cat. "Quick, Mousefur, run!" he ordered, before turning on the RiverClan Tom, who had threatened her. Mousefur scrambled to her paws, wincing from a deep gash on her shoulder, and raced away. Behind her, Tigerclaw spat with rage as the RiverClan Tom sliced open his nose. Blood blinded him for an instant. He lunged forward regardless and sank his teeth into the hind leg of his enemy. The RiverClan cat squealed and struggled free. Tigerclaw, the yell came from the warrior with a tail as red as a fox fur. "This is useless. There are too many RiverClan warriors." "No, Redtail. ThunderClan will never be beaten," Tigerclaw yelled back, leaping to Redtail's side. "This is our territory." Blood was welling around his broad black muzzle, and he shook his head impatiently, scattering scarlet drops onto the rocks. "ThunderClan will honor your courage, Tigerclaw, but we cannot afford to lose any more of our warriors," Redtail urged. Bluestar would never expect her warriors to fight against these impossible odds. "We will have another chance to avenge this defeat." He met Tigerclaw's amber-eyed gaze steadily, then reared away and sprang onto a boulder at the edge of the trees. "Retreat, ThunderClan, retreat!" he yelled. At once his warriors squirmed and struggled away from their opponents. Spitting and snarling, they backed toward Redtail. For a heartbeat, the RiverClan cats looked confused. Was this battle so easily won? Then Oakheart yelled a jubilant cry. As soon as they heard him, the RiverClan warriors raised their voices and joined their deputy in caterwauling their victory. Redtail looked down at his warriors. With a flick of his tail, he gave the signal, and ThunderClan cats dived down the far side of the Sunning Rocks, then disappeared into the trees. Tigerclaw followed last. He hesitated at the edge of the forest and glanced back at the blood-stained battlefield. His face was grim, his eyes furious slits. Then he leaped after his clan into the silent forest. In a deserted clearing, an old gray she-cat sat alone, staring up at the clear night sky. All around her in the shadows she could hear the breathing and stirrings of sleeping cats. A small tortoiseshell she-cat emerged from the dark corner, her paw steps quick and soundless. The gray cat dipped her head in greeting. "How is Mousefur?" she meowed. "Her wounds are deep, Bluestar," answered the tortoiseshell, settling herself on the night-cool grass. "But she is young and strong. She will heal quickly. And the others? They will all recover too." Bluestar sighed. We are lucky not to have lost any of our warriors this time. You are a gifted medicine cat, Spotted Leaf." She tilted her head again and studied the stars. "I am deeply troubled by tonight's defeat. ThunderClan has not been beaten in its own territory since I became leader," she murmured. "These are difficult times for our clan. The season of New Leaf is late, and there has been fewer kits. ThunderClan needs more warriors if it is to survive." "But the year is only just beginning," Spotted Leaf pointed out calmly. "There will be more kits when Greenleaf comes." The gray cat twitched her broad shoulders. "Perhaps, but training our young to become warriors takes time. If ThunderClan is to defend its territory, it must have new warriors as soon as possible." "Are you asking StarClan for answers?" meowed Spotted Leaf gently, following Bluestar's gaze and staring up at the swath of stars glittering in the sky. "It is at times like this we need the words of ancient warriors to help us." "Has StarClan spoken to you?" Bluestar asked. "Not for some moons, Bluestar." Suddenly, a shooting star blazed over the treetops. Spotted Leaf's tail twitched, and the fur along her spine bristled. Bluestar's ears pricked, but she remained silent as Spotted Leaf continued to gaze upward. After a few minutes, Spotted Leaf lowered her head and turned to Bluestar. "It was a message from StarClan," she murmured. A distant look came into her eyes. "Fire alone can save our clans." "Fire," Bluestar echoed. But fire is feared by all the clans. How can it save us?" Spotted Leaf shook her head. I do not know, she admitted. But this is a message StarClan has chosen to share with me. The ThunderClan leader fixed her clear blue eyes on the medicine cat. You have never been wrong before, Spotted Leaf, she meowed. If StarClan has spoken, then it must be so. Fire will save our clan. Hello. How are we feeling so far? You look sleepy? It's because I'm looking down. Like, page turn. Hold on, let me blow my nose real quick. That was the prologue. Wow. Is comfy crazy, right? It's almost like it's not my stream. Okay. I'm reading my book that I annotated the shit out of it. So I was like looking at little notes I have where it's like at where Tiger Star is looking, or not Tiger Star, I'm sorry, Tiger Claw is looking back before retreating. It's just he seems chill, maybe just angry. Okay. We continue. Chapter 1. It was very dark. Rusty could sense something was near. The young tomcat's eyes opened wide as he scanned the dense undergrowth. This place was unfamiliar, but the strange sense drew him onward, deeper into the shadows. His stomach growled, reminding him of his hunger. He opened his jaws slightly to let the warm smells of the forest reach the scent glands on the roof of his mouth. Musty odors of leaf mold mingled with the tempting aroma of a small, furry creature. Suddenly, a flash of gray raced past him. Rusty stopped still, listening. It was hiding in the leaves less than 2 tail lengths away. Rusty knew it was a mouse. He could feel the rapid pulsing of a tiny heart deep within his ear fur. He swallowed, stifling his rumbling stomach. Soon his hunger would be satisfied. Slowly he lowered his body into position. Oh, wait! Hold on, wait. I forgot. Nope, not that. There we go. Okay, now this looks better. Completely forgot. Sorry, I was just kind of looking at a screen. I have my book out now. Okay, where were we? Slowly he lowered his body into position, crouching for the attack. He was downwind of the mouse. He knew it was not aware of him. With one final check on his prey's position, Rusty pushed back hard on his haunches and sprang, kicking up leaves on the forest floor as he rose. The mouse dived for cover, heading toward a hole in the ground, but Rusty was already on top of it. He scooped it into the air, hooking the helpless creature with his thorn-sharp claws, flinging it up in a high arc onto the leaf-covered ground. The mouse landed dazed, but alive. It tried to run, but Rusty snatched it up again. He tossed the mouse once more, this time a little further away. The mouse managed to scramble a few paces before Rusty caught up with it. Suddenly, a noise roared nearby. Rusty looked around, and as he did so, the mouse was able to pull away from his claws. When Rusty turned back, he saw it dart into the darkness, among the tangled roots of a tree. Angry, Rusty gave up the hunt. He spun around, his green eyes glaring, intent on searching out the noise that had cost him his kill. The sound rattled on, becoming more familiar. Rusty blinked open his eyes. The forest had disappeared. He was inside a hot and airless kitchen, curled in his bed. Moonlight filtered through the window, casting shadows on his smooth, hard floor. The noise had been the rattle of the hard, dried pellets of food as they were tipped into his dish. Rusty had been dreaming. Lifting his head, he rested his chin on the side of his bed. His collar rubbed uncomfortably around his neck. In his dream, he had felt fresh air ruffling the soft fur where the collar usually pinched. Rusty rolled onto his back, savoring the dream for a few more minutes. He could still smell mouse. It was the third time since full moon that he'd had that dream, and every time the mouse had escaped his grasp. He licked his lips. From his bed he could smell the bland odor of his food. His owners always refilled his dish before they went to bed. The dusty smell chased away the warm sense of his dream, but the hunger rumbled on in his stomach, so Rusty stretched the sleep out of his limbs and pattered across the kitchen floor to his dinner. The food felt dry and tasteless on his tongue. Rusty reluctantly swallowed one more mouthful, then he turned away from the food dish and pushed his way out through the cat flap, hoping that the smell of the garden would bring back the feeling from his dream. Outside, the moon was bright. It was raining lightly. Rusty stalked down the tidy garden, following the starlit gravel path, feeling the stones cold and sharp beneath his paw. He made his dirt beneath a large bush with glossy green leaves and heavy purple flowers. Their sickly sweet scent cloyed the damp air around him, and he curled his lip to drive the smell out of his nostrils. Afterward, Rusty settled down on top of one of the posts in the fence that marked the limits of his garden. It was a favorite spot of his, as he could see right into the neighboring gardens as well as into the dense green forest on the other side of the garden fence. The rain had stopped. Behind him, the close-cropped lawn was bathed in moonlight, but beyond his fence, the woods were full of shadows. Rusty stretched his head forward to take a sniff of the damp air. His skin was warm and dry under his thick coat, but he could feel the weight of the raindrops that sparkled on his ginger fur. He heard his owners giving him one last call from the back door. If he went to them now, they would greet him with gentle words and caresses and welcome him onto their bed, where he would curl, purring, warm in the crook of a bent knee. But this time, Rusty ignored his owners' voices and turned his gaze back to the forest. The crisp smell of the woods had grown fresher after the rain. Suddenly, the fur on his spine prickled. Was something moving out there? Was something watching him? Rusty stared ahead, but it was impossible to see or smell anything in dark, tree-scented air. He lifted his chin boldly, stood up, and stretched, one paw gripping each corner of the fence post as he straightened his legs and arched his back. He closed his eyes and breathed in the smell of the woods once more. It seemed to promise him something, tempting him onward into the whispering shadows. Tensing his muscles, he crouched for a moment. Then he leaped lightly down into the rough grass on the other side of the garden fence. As he landed, the bell on his collar rang out through the still night air. "Where are you off to, Rusty?" meowed a familiar voice behind him. Rusty looked up. A young black and white cat was balancing ungracefully on the fence. "Hello, Smudge," Rusty replied. "You're not going into the woods, are you?" Smudge's amber eyes were huge. "Just for a look," Rusty promised, shifting uncomfortably. "You wouldn't get me in there. It's dangerous." Smudge wrinkled his black nose with distaste. "Henry said he went into the woods once." The cat lifted his head and gestured with his nose over the rows of fences towards the garden where Henry lived. "That fat old tabby never went into the woods," Rusty scoffed. "He's hardly been beyond his own garden since his trip to the vet. All he wants to do is eat and sleep." "No, really, he caught a robin there," Smudge insisted. "Well, if he did, then it was before the vet. Now he complains about birds because they disturb his dozing." "Well, anyway," Smudge went on, ignoring the scorn in Rusty's mew, "Henry told me that there are all sorts of dangerous animals out there. Huge wildcats who eat live rabbits for breakfast and sharpen their claws on old bones." "I'm only going for a look around," Rusty meowed. "I won't stay long." "Well, don't say I didn't warn you," purred Smudge. The black and white cat turned and plunged off the fence back down into his own garden. Rusty sat down in the coarse grass beyond the garden fence. He gave his shoulders a nervous lick and wondered how much of Smudge's gossip was true. Suddenly, the movement of a tiny creature caught his eye. He watched it scuttle under some branches. Instinct made him drop into a low crouch. With one slow paw after another, he drew his body forward through the undergrowth. Ears prickled, nostrils flared, eyes unblinking. He moved towards the animal. He could see it clearly now, sitting up among the barbed branches, nibbling on a large seed held between its paws. It was a mouse. Hold on. I need a second. Do you think this is how cats actually see everything? Yeah, absolutely. They also have little murder cults out in the woods. Tea break, actually. I didn't know. I like don't breathe when I'm reading. Okay. Rusty rocked his haunches from side to side, preparing to leap. He held his breath in case his bell rang again. Excitement coursed through him, making his heart pound. I burped. This was even better than his dreams. Then, a sudden noise of cracking twigs and crunching leaves made him jump. His bell jingled treacherously, and the mouse darted away into the thickest tangle of the bramble bush. Rusty stood very still and looked around. He could see the white tip of a red bushy tail trailing through a clump of tall ferns up ahead. He smelled a strong, strange scent, definitely a meat-eater, but neither cat nor dog. Distracted, Rusty forgot about the mouse and watched the red tail curiously. He wanted a better look. All of Rusty's senses trained ahead as he prowled forward. Then he detected another noise. It came from behind, but sounded muted and distant. He swiveled his ears backward to hear it better. Paw steps, he wondered, but he kept his eyes fixed on the strange red fur up ahead and continued to creep onward. It was only when a faint rustling behind him became a loud and fast-approaching leaf crackle that Rusty realized he was in danger. The creature hit him like an explosion, and Rusty was thrown sideways into a clump of nettles. Twisting and yowling, he tried to throw off the attacker that had fastened itself onto his back. It was gripping him with incredibly sharp claws. Rusty could feel spiked teeth prickling at his neck. He writhed and squirmed from whisker to tail, but couldn't free himself. For a second, he felt helpless. Then he froze. Thinking fast, he flipped over onto his back. He knew instinctively how dangerous it was to expose his soft belly, but it was his only chance. He was lucky. The ploy seemed to work. He heard a huff behind him as the breath was knocked out of his attacker. Thrashing fiercely, Rusty managed to wriggle free. Without looking back, he sprinted towards his home. Behind him, a rush of paw steps told Rusty that his attacker was giving chase. Even though the pain from his scratches stung beneath his fur, Rusty decided he would rather turn and fight than let himself be jumped on again. He skidded to a stop, spun around, and faced his pursuer. It was another kitten, with a thick coat of shaggy gray fur, strong legs, and a broad face. In a heartbeat, Rusty smelled that it was a tom, and sensed the power in the sturdy shoulders beneath the soft coat. Then, the kitten crashed into Rusty at full pelt. Taken by surprise by Rusty's turnabout, it fell back into a dazed heap. The impact knocked the breath out of Rusty, and he staggered. He quickly found his footing and arched his back, puffing out his orange fur, ready to spring onto the other kitten. But his attacker simply sat up and began to lick a forepaw, all signs of aggression gone. Rusty felt strangely disappointed. Every part of him was tense, ready for battle. "Hi there, kitty pet," meowed the gray tom cheerily. "You put up quite the fight for a tame kitty." "And here, enter, attacker. Shut up! I'm trying my best." "Enter, BFF. BFF. This is little Ricky." He goes like this. He goes, "Wow." He's big and floofy. It's Gray Paw. Gray Paw. Hold on, I need some tea. He's got the schnoz because he has a gray stripe. Anyways. Rusty remained on tiptoe for a second, wondering whether to attack anyway. Then he remembered the strength he had felt in the kitten's paws when he had pinned him to the ground. He dropped onto his pads, loosened his muscles, and let his spine unbend. "And I'll fight you again if I have to," he growled. "I'm Grey Paw, by the way," the gray kitten went on, ignoring Rusty's threat. "I'm training to be a ThunderClan warrior." Rusty remained silent. He didn't understand what this gray whatsit was meowing about, but he sensed the threat had passed. He hid his confusion by leaning down to lick his ruffled chest. "What's a kitty pet like you doing out in the woods? Don't you know it's dangerous?" asked Grey Paw. "If you're the most dangerous thing in the woods has to offer, then I think I can handle it," Rusty bluffed. Grey Paw looked at him for a moment, narrowing his big yellow eyes. "Oh, I'm far from the most dangerous. If I were even half a warrior, I'd have given an intruder like you some real wounds to think about." Rusty felt a thrill of fear at those ominous words. What did this cat mean by intruder? "Anyway," meowed Grey Paw, using his sharp teeth to tug a clump of grass from between his claws, "I didn't think it was worth hurting you. You're obviously not from one of the other clans." "Other clans?" Rusty echoed, confused. Grey Paw let out an impatient hiss. "You must have heard of the 4 warrior clans that hunt around here. I belong to ThunderClan. The other clans are always trying to steal prey from our territory, especially ShadowClan. They're so fierce that they would have ripped you to shreds, no questions asked." Grey Paw paused to spit angrily and continued. "They come to take prey that is rightfully ours. It's the job of the ThunderClan warriors to keep them out of our territory. When I finish my training, I'll be so dangerous I'll have the other clans shaking in their flea-bitten skins. They won't dare come near us then." Rusty narrowed his eyes. This must be one of the wildcats Smudge had warned him about. Living rough in the woods, hunting and fighting each other for every last scrap of food. Yet Rusty didn't feel scared. In fact, it was hard not to admire this confident kitten. "So, you're not a warrior yet?" he asked. "Why, did you think I was?" Grey Paw purred proudly. Then he shook his wide, furry head. "I won't be a real warrior for ages. I have to go through training first. Kits have to be 6 moons before they even begin training. Tonight is my first night out as an apprentice." "Why don't you find yourself an owner with a nice cozy house instead? Your life would be so much easier," Rusty meowed. "There are plenty of housefolk who'd take in a kitten like you. All you have to do is sit where they can see you and look hungry for a couple of days." "And they'd feed me pellets that look like rabbit droppings and soft slop," Grey Paw interrupted. "No way. I can't think of anything worse than being a kitty pet. They're nothing but 2-leg toys. Eating stuff that doesn't look like food, making dirt in a box of gravel, sticking their noses outside only when the 2 legs allow them. That's no life. Out here it's wild and it's free. We come and go as we please." He finished his speech with a proud spit, then meowed mischievously. "Until you've tasted..." Huh? Sorry, I looked at this sentence and I was like, this doesn't look right. "Until you tasted a fresh-killed mouse, you haven't lived. Have you ever tasted mouse?" "No," Rusty admitted, a little defensively. "Not yet." "I guess you'll never understand," Grey Paw sighed. "You weren't born wild. It makes a difference. You need to be born with warrior blood in your veins." How the fuck is Rusty not eaten a rat yet? He's a cat? Because he's a house kitten. He's a house kitten. If he doesn't need to eat a rat, he's not going to. Anyways. You need to be born with warrior blood in your veins, or feel the wind in your whiskers. Kitties born in 2-leg nests could never feel the same way. Rusty remembered the way he had felt in his dream. "That's not true," he mewed indignantly. Grey Paw did not reply. He suddenly stiffened mid-lick, one paw still raised, and sniffed the air. "I smell cats from my clan," he hissed. "You should go. They won't be pleased to find you hunting in our territory." Rusty looked around, wondering how Grey Paw knew any cat was approaching. He couldn't smell anything different on the leaf-scented breeze. But his fur stood on end at the note of the urgency in Grey Paw's voice. "Quick!" hissed Grey Paw again. "Run!" Rusty prepared to spring into the bushes, not knowing which way was safe to jump. He was too late. A voice meowed behind him, firm and menacing. What's going on here? Rusty turned to see a large gray she-cat strolling majestically out from the undergrowth. She was magnificent. White hair streaked her muzzle, and an ugly scar parted the fur across her shoulders. But her smooth gray coat shone like silver in the moonlight. Blue Star! Beside Rusty, Graypaw crouched down and narrowed his eyes. He crouched even lower when his second cat, a handsome golden tabby, followed the gray cat into the clearing. You shouldn't be so near Two-Leg Place, Graypaw, growled the golden tabby, angrily narrowing his green eyes. I know, Lionheart, I'm sorry. Graypaw looked down at his paws. Rusty copied Graypaw and crouched low to the forest floor, his ears twitching nervously. These cats had an air of strength he had never seen in any of his garden friends. Maybe what Smudged had warned him about was true. Who is this? Asked the she-cat. Rusty flinched as she turned her gaze on him. Her piercing blue eyes made him feel even more vulnerable. He's no threat, mewed Graypaw quickly. He's not another clan warrior, just a two-legged pet from beyond our territories. Just a two-legged pet? The words inflamed Rusty, but he held his tongue. The warning look in Blue Star's stare told him that she had observed the anger in his eyes, and he looked away. This is Blue Star. She's leader of my clan, Graypaw hissed to Rusty under his breath. Hold on, let me draw these bozos for you. I forgot they use the word kitty pet in the same way wizards use the word muggle, yeah. Lionheart the Care Bear, what a pull. No, he's not a Care Bear. Let me see. I like to draw Blue Star as an oriental cat. Oriental short hair. And I like to draw them with little stars on their head. That's Blue Star. Blue Star. And then Lionheart is big and buff. So he's got that big old muzzle. No, he doesn't look like that. He looks like this. And he's just kind of like an old man. And he has a beard also. That's him. Lionheart. That's them. That's what they look like. It's Lionheart, right? Yeah. Yeah. And Lionheart, he's my mentor, which means he's training me to be a warrior. Thank you for the introduction, Graypaw, meowed Lionheart coolly. Blue Star was still staring at Rusty. You fight well for a two-legged pet, she meowed. Rusty and Graypaw exchanged confused glances. How could she know? We've been watching you both, Blue Star went on, as if she had read their thoughts. We wondered how you would deal with an intruder, Graypaw. You attacked him bravely. Graypaw looked pleased at Blue Star's praise. Sit up now, both of you. Blue Star looked at Rusty. You too, kitty pet. He sat up immediately and held Blue Star's gaze evenly as she addressed him. You reacted well to the attack, kitty pet. Graypaw is stronger than you, but you used your wits to defend yourself. And you turned to face him when he chased you. I've not seen a kitty pet do that before. Rusty managed to nod his thanks, taken aback by such an unexpected praise. Her next words surprised him even more. I have been wondering how you would perform out here beyond the two-leg place. We patrol this border frequently, so I have often seen you sitting on your boundary, staring out into the forest. And now, at last, you have dared to place your paws here. Blue Star stared at Rusty thoughtfully. You do seem to have a natural hunting ability, sharp eyes. You would have caught that mouse if you had not hesitated so long. Really? Rusty stammered. Lionheart spoke now. His deep meow was respectful but insistent. Blue Star, this is a kitty pet. He should not be hunting in ThunderClan territory. Send him home to his two legs. Rusty prickled at Lionheart's dismissive words. "Send me home?" he mewed impatiently. Bluestar's words had made him glow with pride. She had noticed him. She had been impressed by him. "But I've only come here to hunt for a mouse or two. I'm sure there's enough to go around." Bluestar had turned her head to acknowledge Lionheart's words. Now her gaze snapped back to Rusty. Her blue eyes were blazing with anger. "There's never enough to go around," she spat. If you didn't live such a soft, overfed life, you would know that." Rusty was confused by Bluestar's sudden rage, but one glance at the horrified look on Graypaw's face was enough to tell him that he had spoken too freely. Lionheart stepped to his leader's side. Both warriors loomed over him now. Rusty looked into Bluestar's threatening stare, and his pride dissolved. These were not cozy fireside cats he was dealing with. They were mean, hungry cats who were probably going to finish what Graypaw had started. Ooh! Ooh! Oh my god. Ugh. Okay. I need some more water. Shit. Yeah, they said get out. Get out! Chapter 2! "Well," hissed Bluestar, her face only a mouse length away from him now. Lionheart remained silent as he towered over Rusty. He flattened his ears and crouched under the golden warrior's cold stare. His fur prickled uncomfortably. "I am no threat to your clan," he mewed, looking down at his trembling paws. "You threaten our clan when you take our food," yelled Bluestar. "You have plenty of food in your two-legged nest already. You come here only to hunt for sport, but we hunt to survive." Oh, sorry. The truth of the warrior queen's words pierced Rusty like a black thorn, and suddenly he understood her anger. He stopped trembling, sat up, and straightened his ears. He raised his eyes to meet hers. "I had not thought of it that way before. I am sorry," he mewed solemnly. "I will not hunt here again." Bluestar let her hackles fall and signaled to Lionheart to step back. "You are an unusual kitty pet, Rusty," she meowed. Graypaw's sigh of relief made Rusty's ears twitch. He heard the approval in Bluestar's voice and noticed as she swapped a meaningful glance with Lionheart. The look made him curious. What flashed between the two warriors? Quietly, he asked, Is survival here really so hard?" "Our territory covers only part of the forest," answered Bluestar. "We compete with other clans for what we have. And this year, late new leaf means prey is scarce." "Is your clan very big?" Rusty meowed, his eyes wide. "Big enough," replied Bluestar. "Our territory can support us, but there is no prey left over." "Are you all warriors, then?" Rusty mewed. Bluestar's guarded answers were just making him more and more curious. Lionheart answered him. "Some are warriors. Some are too young or too old or too busy caring for kits to hunt." "And you all live and share prey together?" Rusty murmured in awe, thinking a little guiltily of his own easy, selfish life. Bluestar looked again at Lionheart. The golden tabby stared back at her steadily. At last she returned her gaze to Rusty and meowed. "Perhaps you should find these things out for yourself. Would you like to join ThunderClan?" Rusty was so surprised he couldn't speak. Bluestar went on. "If you did, you would train with Graypaw to become a clan warrior." But kitty pets can't be warriors," Graypaw blurted out. "They don't have warrior blood." A sad look clouded Bluestar's eyes. "Warrior blood," she echoed with a sigh. "Too much of that has been spilled lately." Bluestar fell silent, and Lionheart meowed. "Bluestar is only offering you training, young kit. There is no guarantee you would become a full warrior. It might prove too difficult for you. After all, you are used to a comfortable life." Rusty was stung by Lionheart's words. He swung his head around to face the golden tabby. "Why offer me the chance, then?" But it was Bluestar who answered. "You are right to question our motives, young one. The fact is, ThunderClan needs more warriors." Understand that Bluestar does not make this offer lightly, warned Lionheart. "If If you wish to train with us, we will have to take you into our clan. You must either live with us and respect our ways, or return to your two-leg place and never come back. You cannot live with a paw in each world. Yes I can. A cool breeze stirred the undergrowth, ruffling Rusty's fur. He shivered, not with the cold, but with the excitement at the incredible possibility opening up in front of him. Are you wondering if it's worth giving up your comfortable kitty pet life? Asked Bluestar gently. But do you realize the price you will pay for your warmth and food? Rusty looked at her, puzzled. Surely this encounter with these cats had proven to him just how easy and luxurious his life was. I can tell that you are still Tom, Bluestar added, despite the two-legged stench that clings to your fur. Oh god, not this. What do you mean, still a Tom? You haven't yet been taken by the two legs to see the cutter, meowed Bluestar gravely. You would be very different then, not quite so keen to fight a clan cat, I suspect. Rusty was confused. He suddenly thought of Henry, who had become fat and lazy since his visit to the vet. Was that what Bluestar meant by the cutter? Sorry, I was reading my annotation. I read my own annotation. It says, if you lose your nut, you become a fat sack of shit. Sorry. Anyways. The clan may not be able to offer you such easy food or warmth, continued Bluestar. In the season of leaf bare, nights in the forest can be cruel. The clan will demand great loyalty and hard work. You will be expected to protect the clan with your life if necessary. And there are many mouths to feed, but the rewards are great. You will remain a Tom. You will be trained in the ways of the wild. You will learn what it is to be a real cat. The strength and the fellowship of the clan will always be with you, even when you hunt alone. Rusty's head reeled. Bluestar seemed to be offering him the life he had lived so many times, and so tantalizingly in his dreams. But could he live like that for real? Lionheart interrupted his thoughts. Come, Bluestar, let's not waste any more time here. We must be ready to join the other patrol at moonlight. Tigerclaw will wonder what has become of us. He stood up and flicked his tail expectantly. Wait, Rusty meowed. Can I think about your offer? Bluestar looked at him for a long moment and nodded. Lionheart will be here tomorrow at Sunhigh, she told him. Give him your answer then. Bluestar murmured a low signal, and in a single moment, the three cats turned and disappeared into the undergrowth. Oh, God. Rusty blinked. He stared, excited, uncertain, up past the ferns that encircled him, through the canopy of leaves, to the stars that glittered in the clear sky. The scent of the clan cats were still hung heavy in the evening air, and as Rusty turned and headed for home, he felt a strange sensation inside him, tugging him back into the depths of the forest. His fur prickled deliciously in the light wind, and the rustling leaves seemed to whisper his name into the shadows. Nut singular? I don't know. I don't know why I wrote it nut singular. Sorry. Let's see. Let me get some water. Some wawa. Okay. That morning, as Rusty slept off his night's wanderings, the mouse dream came again, even more vivid than before. Free of his collar, beneath the moon, he stalked the timid creature. But this time, he was aware of being watched. Shining from the shadows of the forest, he saw dozens of yellow eyes. The clan cats had entered his dream world. Rusty woke, blinking in the bright sunshine that was streaming across the kitchen floor. His fur felt heavy and thick with warmth. His food bowl had been topped up, and his water bowl rinsed and filled out with bitter-tasting two-leg water. Huh? Bitter-tasting? Heavy metals? Is that why? Rusty preferred drinking from puddles outside. But when it was hot, or when he was very thirsty, he had to admit it was easier to lap up the water indoors. Could he really abandon his comfortable life? He ate, and pushed his way out of the cat flap into the garden. The day promised to be warm, and the garden was heavy with the smell of early blossoms. "Hello, Rusty," mewed a voice from the fence. It was Smudge. "You should have been awake an hour ago. The baby sparrows were out stretching their wings." "Did you catch any?" Rusty asked. Smudge yawned and licked his nose. "Couldn't be bothered. I'd already eaten enough at home. Anyway, why weren't you out earlier? Yesterday you were complaining about Henry sleeping his time away. And today you're not much better yourself." Rusty sat down on the cool earth beside the fence and curled his tail neatly over his front paws. "I was in the woods last night," he reminded his friend. At once he felt the blood stir in his veins and his fur stiffen. Smudge looked down at him, his eyes wide. "Oh, yes, I forgot. How was it? Did you catch anything? Or did anything catch you?" Rusty paused, not sure how to tell his old friend what had happened. "I met some wildcats," he began. "What?" Smudge was clearly shocked. "Did you get into a fight?" "Sort of." Rusty could feel the energy surging through his body again as he recalled the strength and power of the clan cats. "Were you hurt? What happened?" Smudge prompted him eagerly. "There were 3 of them, bigger and stronger than any of us." "And you fought all 3 of them?" Smudge interrupted, his tail twitching with excitement. "No," Rusty mewed hastily. "Just the youngest one. The other 2 came later." "How come they didn't shred you into pieces?" "They just warned me to leave their territory, but then—" Rusty hesitated. "What?" mewed Smudge impatiently. "They asked me to join their clan." Smudge's whiskers quivered disbelievingly. "They did," Rusty insisted. "Why would they do that?" "I don't know," Rusty admitted. "I think they need extra paws in their clan." "Sounds a bit odd to me," Smudge mewed doubtfully. "I wouldn't trust them if I were you." Rusty looked at Smudge. His black and white friend had never shown any interest in venturing into the woods. He was perfectly content living with his housefolk. He would never understand the restless longing that Rusty's dreams stirred him night after night. "But I do trust them," Rusty purred softly. "And I've made up my mind. I'm going to join them." Rusty scrambled down from the fence and stood in front of Smudge! Smudge! Smudge scrambled down from the fence and stood in front of Rusty. "Please don't go, Rusty," he mewed in alarm. "I might never see you again." Rusty nudged him affectionately with his head. "Don't worry. My housefolk will get another cat. You'll get on with him fine. You get along with everyone." "But it won't be the same," Smudge wailed. Rusty twitched his tail impatiently. "That's just the point. If I stay around here till they take me to the cutter, I won't be the same either." Smudge looked puzzled. "The cutter?" he echoed. "The vet," Rusty explained. "To be altered, like Henry was." Smudge shrugged and stared down at his paws. "But Henry's all right," he mumbled. "I mean, I know he's a bit lazier now, but he's not unhappy. We could still have fun." Rusty felt his heart fill with sadness at the thought of leaving his friend. "I'm sorry, Smudge. I'll miss you, but I have to go." Smudge didn't reply, but stepped forward and gently touched Rusty's nose with his own. "Fair enough. I can see I can't stop you. But at least let's spend one more morning together." Rusty found himself enjoying the morning even more than usual. Visiting his old haunts with Smudge, sharing words with the cats he had grown up with. Every one of his senses felt supercharged, as if he were poised before a huge jump. As Sunhigh approached, Rusty grew more and more impatient to see if Lionheart would really be waiting for him. The idle buzz of meows from his old friends seemed to fade into the background as all his senses strained towards the woods. Rusty jumped down from his garden fence for the last time and crept into the woods. He had said his goodbyes to Smudge. Now all his thoughts were focused on the forest and the cats who lived in it. As he approached the spot where he had met with the clan cats the night before, he sat down and tasted the air. Tall trees shielded the ground from the midday sunshine, making it comfortably cool. Here and there, a patch of sunlight shone through the gap in the leaves and lit up the forest floor. Rusty could smell the same cat scent as last night, but he had no idea whether it was old or new. He lifted his head and sniffed uncertainly. "You have a lot to learn," meowed a deep voice. Even the tiniest clan kitten knows when another cat is nearby. Rusty saw a pair of green eyes glinting from beneath a bramble bush. Now he recognized the scent. It was Lionheart. "Can you tell if I am alone?" asked the golden tabby, stepping into the light. Hastily, Rusty sniffed again. The scents of Blue Star and Grey Paw were still there, but not as strong as the previous night. Hesitantly, he meowed. Blue Star and Grey Paw aren't with you this time." "That's right," meowed Lionheart, "but someone else is." Rusty stiffened as a second clan cat strode into the clearing. "This is White Storm," purred Lionheart, one of ThunderClan's senior warriors. Rusty looked at the Tom and felt his spine tingle with cold fear. Was this a trap? Long-bodied and muscular, White Storm stood in front of Rusty and gazed down at him. His white coat was thick and unmarked, and his eyes were the yellow of sun-baked sand. Rusty flattened his ears warily and tensed his muscles in preparation for a fight. "Relax before your fear scent brings unwanted attention," growled Lionheart. "We are here only to take you to our camp." Rusty sat very still, hardly daring to breathe, as White Storm stretched his nose forward and gave him a curious sniff. "Hello, young one," murmured the white cat. "I've heard a lot about you." Rusty dipped his head in greeting. "Come, we can speak more once we are in the camp," ordered Lionheart, and without pausing, he and White Storm leaped away into the undergrowth. Rusty jumped to his paws and followed quickly as he could. The two warriors made no allowances for Rusty as they sped through the forest, and before long he was struggling to keep up. Their pace barely slowed as they led him over fallen trees that they cleared in a single leap, but which Rusty had to scramble over paw by paw. They passed through sharply fragrant pine trees, where they had to jump across deep gullies turned up by a two-legged tree eater. From the safety of his garden fence, Rusty had often heard it roaring and snarling in the distance. One gully was too wide to jump, half filled with slimy, foul-smelling water. The clan cats waded through it without hesitating. Rusty had never put a paw in water before, but he was determined not to show any signs of weakness, so he narrowed his eyes and followed, trying to ignore the uncomfortable wetness that soaked his belly fur. At last, Lionheart and White Storm paused. Rusty skidded to a halt behind them and stood panting while the two warriors stepped back onto a rock that had rested on the edge of a small ravine. "We are very close to our camp now," meowed Lionheart. Rusty strained to see any signs of life, moving leaves, a glimpse of fur amongst the bushes below, but his eyes saw nothing except the same undergrowth that covered the rest of the forest floor. "Use your nose. You must be able to scent it," hissed White Storm impatiently. Rusty closed his eyes and sniffed. White Storm was right. The scents here were very different from the cat scent he was used to. The air smelled stronger, speaking of many, many different cats. He nodded thoughtfully and announced, "I can smell cats." Lionheart and White Storm exchanged amused looks. There will come a time, if you are accepted into the clan, when you will know each cat scent by name. Lionheart meowed. "Follow me." He led the way nimbly down the boulders to the bottom of the ravine and pushed his way through a thick patch of gorse. Rusty followed, and White Storm took up the rear. As his side scraped against the prickly gorse, Rusty looked down and noticed that the grass beneath his paws was flattened into a broad, strong-smelling track. This must be the main entrance into the camp, he thought. Beyond the gorse, a clearing opened up. The ground at the center was bare, hard earth, shaped by many generations of paw steps. This camp had been here a long time. The clearing was dappled by sunshine, and the air felt warm and still. Rusty looked around, his eyes wide. There were cats everywhere, sitting alone or in groups, sharing food or purring quietly as they groomed one another. Just after sun-high, when the day is hottest, is time for sharing tongues, Lionheart explained. "Sharing tongues?" Rusty echoed. "Clan cats always spend time grooming each other and sharing the news of the day," White Storm told him. "We call it sharing tongues. It is a custom that binds the members of the clan together." The cats had obviously smelled Rusty's foreign scent, for heads began to turn and stare curiously in his direction. Suddenly shy of meeting any cat's gaze directly, Rusty looked around the clearing. It was edged with thick grass, dotted with tree stumps and a fallen tree. A thick curtain of ferns and gorse shielded the camp from the rest of the woods. Over there, meowed Lionheart, flicking his tail toward an impenetrable-looking tangle of brambles, is the nursery, where the kits are cared for. Rusty swiveled his ears towards the bushes. He couldn't see through the knot of prickly branches, but he could hear the mewings of several kittens from somewhere inside. As he watched, a ginger she-cat squirmed out through the small gap in the front. That must be one of the queens, Rusty thought. A tabby queen with distinctive black markings appeared around the bramble bush. The two she-cats exchanged a friendly lick between the ears before the tabby slipped inside the nursery, murmuring to the squealing kits. The care of our kits is shared by all of the queens, meowed Lionheart. All cats serve the clan. Loyalty to the clan is first law in our warrior code, a lesson you must learn quickly if you wish to stay with us. Here comes Blue Star, meowed White Storm, sniffing the air. Rusty sniffed the air too, and was pleased that he was able to recognize the scent of the gray she-cat a moment before she appeared from the shadow of a large boulder that lay beside them at the head of the clearing. He came. Blue Star purred, addressing the warriors. White Storm replied. Lionheart was convinced he would not. Rusty noticed the tip of Blue Star's tail twitch impatiently. Well, what do you think of him? She asked. He kept up well on the return journey, despite his puny size, White Storm admitted. He certainly seems strong for a kitty pet. So is it agreed? Blue Star looked at Lionheart and White Storm. Both cats nodded. Then I shall announce his arrival to the clan. Blue Star leapt up onto the boulder and yelled, Let all those cats old enough to catch their own prey join here beneath the high rock for a clan meeting. Her clear call brought all the cats trotting toward her, emerging like liquid shadows from the edges of the clearing. Rusty stayed where he was, flanked by Lionheart and White Storm. The other cats settled themselves below the high rock and looked expectantly up at their leader. Rusty felt a rush of relief as he recognized Graypaw's thick gray fur among the cats. Beside him sat a young tortoiseshell queen, her black-tipped tail tucked neatly over small white paws. A large, dark gray tabby crouched behind them, the black stripes on his fur looking like shadows on a moonlit forest floor. When the cats were still, Blue Star spoke. ThunderClan needs more warriors, she began. Never before had we had so few apprentices in training. It has been decided that ThunderClan will take in an outsider to train as a warrior. Rusty heard indignant mutterings erupt among the clan cats, but Blue Star silenced them with a firm yowl. I have found a cat who is willing to become an apprentice of ThunderClan. Lucky to become an apprentice, caterwauled a loud voice, above the ripple of shock that spread through the cats. Rusty craned his neck and saw a pale tabby cat standing up and glaring defiantly at the leader. Blue Star ignored the tabby and addressed all of her clan. Lionheart and White Storm have met this young cat, and they agree with me that we should train him with the other apprentices. Rusty looked up at Lionheart, then back at the clan, to find all eyes were on him now. His fur prickled, and he swallowed nervously. There was silence for a moment. Rusty was sure they must all be able to hear his heart pulsing and smell his fear scent. Now a deafening crescendo of caterwauling rose from the crowd. Where does he come from? Which clan does he belong to? What a strange scent he carries. That's not the scent of any clan I know. Then one yowl in particular sounded out above the rest. Look at his collar. He's a kitty pet. It was the pale tabby again. Once a kitty pet, always a kitty pet. This clan needs wild-born warriors to defend it, not another soft mouth to feed. Ugh, I need water. I love how they keep commenting that Rusty is tiny when he's, like, literally still a kitten. Kitty pet, point it left! Lionheart bent down and hissed into Rusty's ear. That tabby is Longtail. He smells your fear. They all do. You must prove to him and the other cats that your fear won't hold you back. But Rusty couldn't move. How could he ever prove to these fierce cats that he wasn't just a kitty pet? The tabby continued to jeer at him. Your collar is a mark of the two legs, and that noisy jingling will make you a poor hunter at best. At worst, it'll bring the two legs into our territory, looking for the poor lost kitty pet who fills the woods with his pitiful tinkling. All the cats howled in agreement. Longtail went on, well aware that he had the support of his audience. The noise of your treacherous bell will alert our enemies, even if your two-legged stench doesn't. Lionheart hissed into Rusty's ear once more. Do you back down from a challenge? Rusty did not move, but this time he was trying to pinpoint Longtail's position. There he was, just behind a dusky brown queen. Rusty flattened his ears, narrowed his eyes, and hissing, leapt through the startled cats to fling himself onto his tormentor. Longtail was completely unprepared for Rusty's attack. He staggered sideways, losing his footing on the hard-baked earth. Filled with rage and desperate to prove himself, Rusty dug his claws deep into the tabby cat's fur and sank in his teeth. No subtle rituals of swiping and boxing preceded this fight. The two cats were locked in a screaming, writhing tussle that flipped and somersaulted around the clearing at the heart of the camp. The other cats had to spring out of the way to avoid the screeching and whirlwind of fur. As Rusty scratched and struggled, he was suddenly aware that he felt no fear, only exhilaration. Through the roaring of the blood in his ears, he could hear the cats around him wailing with excitement. Then Rusty felt his collar tighten around his neck. Longtail had gripped it between his teeth and was tugging and tugging hard. Rusty felt a terrible pressure at his throat. Unable to breathe, he started to panic. He writhed and twisted, but each movement only made the pressure worse. Retching and gulping for air, he summoned up all his strength and tried to pull away from Longtail's grip. And suddenly, with a loud snap, he was free. Longtail tumbled away from him. Rusty scrambled to his paws and looked around. Longtail was crouching 3 tail lengths away, and dangling from Longtail's mouth, Rusty saw his collar, mangled and broken. At once, Bluestar leapt down from the high rock and silenced the noisy crowd with a thunderous caterwaul. Rusty and Longtail remained fixed to the spot, gasping for breath. Clumps of fur hung from their ruffled coats. Rusty could feel a cut stinging above his eye. Longtail's left ear was badly torn, and blood dripped down his lean shoulders onto the dusty ground. They stared at each other, their hostility not yet spent. Bluestar stepped forward and took the collar from Longtail. She placed it on the ground in front of her and meowed. The newcomer has lost his two-legged collar in a battle for his honor. StarClan has spoken its approval. The cat has been released from the hold of his two-legged owners and is free to join ThunderClan as an apprentice. Rusty looked at Bluestar and solemnly nodded his acceptance. He stood up and stepped forward onto a shaft of sunshine, welcoming the warmth on his sore muscles. The pool of light blazed bright on his orange pelt, making his fur glow. Rusty lifted his head proudly and looked at the cats that surrounded him. This time, no cat argued or jeered. He had shown himself to be a worthy opponent in battle. Bluestar approached Rusty and placed a shredded collar on the ground in front of him. She touched his ear gently with her nose. "You look like a brand of fire in the sunlight," she murmured. Her eyes flashed briefly, as if her words had more meaning for her than Rusty knew. "You fought well." Then she turned to the clan and announced, "From this day forward, until he has earned his warrior name, this apprentice will be called Firepaw, in honor of his flame-colored coat." She stepped back, and with the other cats, waited silently for his next move. Without hesitating, Rusty turned and kicked dust and grass over his collar, as though burying his dirt. Longtail growled and limped out of the clearing toward a fern-shaded corner. The cats split into groups, murmuring to each other excitedly. "Hey, Firepaw!" Rusty had heard Greypaw's friendly voice behind him. "Firepaw!" A thrill of pride surged through him at the sound of his new name. He turned to greet the Grey apprentice with a welcoming sniff. "Great fight, Firepaw," meowed Greypaw. "Especially for a kitty pet. Longtail is a warrior, although he only finished his training 2 moons ago. That scar you left on his ear won't let him forget you were in a That scar you left on his ear won't let him forget you in a hurry. You spoiled his good looks, that's for sure." "Thanks, Greypaw," Firepaw replied. He put up quite the fight, though. He licked his front paw and began to wipe clean the deep scratch that stung above his eye. As he washed, he heard his new name again, echoing among the meows of the cats. Firepaw! Hey, Firepaw! Welcome, young Firepaw. Firepaw closed his eyes for a moment and let the voices wash over him. Good name, too, Greypaw mewed approvingly, jolting him awake. Firepaw looked around. Where did Longtail creep off to? I think he was heading toward Spotted Leaf's den. Greypaw tipped his head toward the fern-enclosed corner. Longtail had disappeared into. She's our medicine cat. Not bad-looking either, younger and a lot prettier than most. A low yowl next to the two cats stopped Greypaw mid-speech. They both turned, and Firepaw recognized the powerful gray-tabbed cat who sat behind Greypaw earlier. Darkstripe, mewed Greypaw, dipping his head respectfully. The sleek Tom looked at Firepaw for a moment. Lucky your collar snapped when it did. Longtail is a young warrior, but I can't imagine him being beaten by a kitty pet. He spat the word kitty pet scornfully. He spat the word kitty pet scornfully, then turned and stalked off. Now Darkstripe, Greypaw hissed to Firepaw under his breath, is neither young nor pretty. Sick burn. Let's see. Draw Tailman Dog? Oh, okay, yeah, I love Longtail. Let me draw him real quick. I love my guy Longtail. He looks like this. And he's got a notch in his ear. He's a tabby, so he has little stripes and an M on his head. M on his forehead. He's a forehead. And then he has little stripy stripes. And he's a really long cat. Hold on. He's got a long ass tail. Oops, wrong way. There he is, there's Longtail. Longtail. He's got his little M. We love Longtail here. He's just a little bit grumpy in this scene. He gets better. Trust. Trust and believe. Firepaw was about to agree with his new friend when he was interrupted by a warning yowl from an old gray cat sitting at the edge of the clearing. Small-ear smells trouble, Greypaw meowed, immediately alert. Firepaw barely had time to look around before a young cat crashed through the bushes and into the camp. He was skinny and, apart from the white tip of his long, thin tail, jet black from head to toe. Greypaw gasped. That's Ravenpaw. Why is he alone? Where's Tigerclaw? Firepaw looked at Ravenpaw, staggering across the floor of the clearing. He was panting heavily. His coat was ruffled and dusty, and his eyes were wild with fear. Who are Ravenpaw and Tigerclaw? Firepaw whispered to Greypaw, as several other cats raced past him to greet the new arrival. Ravenpaw's an apprentice. Tigerclaw's his mentor, Greypaw explained quickly. Ravenpaw went out with Tigerclaw and Redtail at sunrise on a mission against RiverClan, the lucky furball. Redtail, Firepaw echoed, thoroughly confused by all the names. Bluestar's deputy, hissed Greypaw. But why on earth has Ravenclaw come back Fuck! Ah, so many names! But why on earth has Ravenpaw come back alone? He added to himself. He lifted his head to listen as Bluestar stepped forward. Ravenpaw? The she-cat spoke calmly, but a look of worry clouded her blue eyes. The other cats drew back, curling their lips with anxiety. What has happened? Bluestar jumped into the high rock and looked down at the trembling cat. Speak, Ravenpaw. Ravenpaw was still struggling for breath, and his sides heaved fitfully while the dust around him turned red with blood. But still he managed to scramble up onto the high rock and stand beside Bluestar. He turned to the crowded, eager faces that surrounded him and summoned enough breath to declare, Redtail is dead. Chapter 4. Shocked yells rose from the clan cats and echoed through the forest. Ravenpaw staggered slightly. His right foreleg glistened, wet with blood that flowed from the deep gash on his shoulder. We met 5 River Clan warriors beside the stream. Not far from the Sunning Rocks, he went on shakily. Oakhart was among them. Oakhart! Greypaw gasped while gasped beside Firepaw. He's the deputy of River Clan. He's one of the greatest warriors in the forest. Lucky Ravenpaw. Wish it could have been me. I'd have really. Greypaw was silenced by a fierce glance from the old Grey Tom who had first sensed Ravenpaw's return. Firepaw turned his attention back to Ravenpaw. Redtail warned Oakhart to keep his hunting parties out of ThunderClan territory. He said the next River Clan warrior to be caught in ThunderClan territory would be killed, but Oakhart would not back down. He said his clan had to be fed, whatever we threatened. Ravenpaw paused to wheeze for breath. His wound was still bleeding heavily, and he stood awkwardly to keep the weight off his shoulder. That's when the River Clan cats attacked. It was hard to see what was happening. The fighting was vicious. I saw Oakhart had Redtail pinned to the ground, but then Redtail... Suddenly, Ravenpaw's eyes rolled in his head as he lurched sideways. Half scrambling, half falling, he slithered off the high rock and collapsed on the ground below. A ginger queen bounded toward him and crouched at his side. She licked his cheek briefly and called out, "Spotted Leaf!" Out of the fern-shaded corner trotted the pretty tortoiseshell Firepaw had noticed sitting beside Greypaw earlier. She hurried over to Ravenpaw and mewed for the queen to stand back. Oh, sorry, I thought I saw something. She used her small pink nose to roll the apprentice over so that she could take a good look at the wound. She glanced up and meowed. "It's all right, Golden Flower. His wounds aren't fatal, but I'll need to fetch some cobwebs to stop the bleeding." As Spotted Leaf sprinted back to her den, the hushed silence in the clearing was broken by a mournful howl. All eyes turned to the direction it had come from. A massive dark brown tabby staggered through the gorse tunnel. Between his sharp teeth, the warrior held not prey, but the lifeless body of another cat. He dragged the tattered creature into the center of the clearing. Firepaw craned his neck and glimpsed a flash of bright ginger tail hanging limply in the dust. Shock rippled through the clan like a chill breeze. Fuck me. Fuck thee. Beside Firepaw, Greypaw dropped into a crouch as grief swept over him. "Redtail!" "How did this happen, Tigerclaw?" demanded Bluestar from her position on the high rock. Tigerclaw let the scruff of Redtail's neck fall from his mouth. He looked steadily back at Bluestar. "He died with honor, struck down by Oakhart. I couldn't save him, but I managed to take Oakhart's life while he was still gloating over his victory." Tigerclaw's voice was strong and deep. "Redtail's death was not in vain, for I doubt we'll see River Clan hunters in our territory again." Firepaw glanced at Greypaw. The apprentice's eyes were dark with sadness. After a moment's pause, several of the cats moved forward to lick Redtail's bedraggled fur. As they groomed, they purred hushed phrases to the dead warrior. Firepaw whispered into Greypaw's ear, "What are they doing?" Greypaw didn't take his eyes off the dead cat as he replied, "His spirit may have left to join StarClan, but the clan will share tongues with Redtail one last time." "StarClan?" Firepaw echoed. "It's the tribe of heavenly warriors that watch over all clan cats. You can see them in Silverpelt." Firepaw looked confused, so Greypaw explained. "Silverpelt is that thick band of stars you see each night stretching across the sky. Each star is a StarClan warrior. Redtail will be among them tonight." Firepaw nodded, and Greypaw stepped forward to share tongues with his dead deputy. Bluestar had remained silent while the first cats came to pay their respects to Redtail. Now she leapt down from the high rock and walked slowly toward Redtail's body. The other cats retreated and watched as their leader crouched down to share tongues with her old comrade one last time. When she had finished, she raised her head and spoke. Her voice was low and thick with grief. and the clan listened in silence. Redtail was a brave warrior. His loyalty to ThunderClan could never be doubted. I always relied on his judgment, for it bore witness to the needs of the clan, and was never swayed by self-interest or pride. He would have made a fine leader. Then she lowered herself onto her belly, her head bowed, her paws stretched neatly before her, and silently she grieved for her lost friend. Several other cats came and laid down beside her, their bowed heads and hunched backs echoing her mournful pose. Firepaw watched. He had not known Redtail, but he couldn't help feeling moved as he witnessed the clan mourn. Greypaw came and stood beside him again. Dustpaw will be sad, he remarked. Dustpaw? Redtail's apprentice. That brown-striped tabby over there? I wonder who his new mentor will be. Firepaw glanced over at the small Tom who squatted near Redtail's body, staring unseeing at the ground. Firepaw looked past him to the clan leader. How will Bluestar sit with him? He asked. Or how long will Bluestar sit with him? He asked. Probably the whole night, replied Greypaw. Redtail was her deputy for many, many moons. She won't want to let him go too quickly. He was one of her best warriors. Not as big and powerful as Tigerclaw or Lionheart, but quick and clever. Firepaw looked at Tigerclaw, admiring the strength that swelled in his powerful muscles and broad head. His massive body showed signs of his warrior life. One of his ears was split into a deep V shape, and a thick scar sliced the bridge of his nose. Suddenly, Tigerclaw stood up and walked over to Ravenpaw. Spotted Leaf was crouching beside Tigerclaw's wounded apprentice, using her teeth and front paws to press wads of cobweb onto his shoulder wound. Firepaw leaned towards Greypaw and asked, What's Spotted Leaf doing? Stopping the bleeding. It looked like a nasty cut, and Ravenclaw seemed really shaken up. He's always been a bit jumpy, but I've never seen him this bad before. Let's go and see if he's woken up yet. They made their way through the grieving cats towards the spot where Ravenpaw lay and settled themselves a respectful distance away to wait until Tigerclaw had finished speaking. So, Spotted Leaf, Tigerclaw addressed the tortoiseshell with a confident meow. How is he? Do you think you can save him? I've spent a lot of time training him up, and I don't want my efforts to be wasted at the first battle. Spotted Leaf didn't look up from her patient as she replied, Yes, a pity if, after all your valuable training, he dies in his first fight, eh? Firepaw could hear a teasing purr in her soft mew. Will he live? Tigerclaw demanded. Of course. He just needs to rest. Tigerclaw snorted and looked down at the motionless black shape. He jabbed Ravenpaw with one of his front claws. Come on, then, get up. Ravenpaw didn't move. Look at the length of that claw, Firepaw hissed. Too right, replied Greypaw with feeling. I know I wouldn't want to get into a fight with him. Not so fast, Tigerclaw, Spotted Leaf placed her paw over Tigerclaw's sharp talon and gently moved it away. This apprentice needs to keep as still as possible until the cut has healed. We don't want him opening his wound by jumping about trying to please you. Leave him alone. Firepaw found himself holding his breath as he waited for Tigerclaw's reaction. He guessed that few cats dared to give orders to the warrior like that. The big taffy stiffened and seemed about to speak when Spotted Leaf mewed teasingly. Even you know better than to argue with a medicine cat, Tigerclaw. Tigerclaw's eyes flashed at the little tortoiseshell's words. I wouldn't dare argue with you, dear Spotted Leaf, he purred. He turned to leave and caught sight of Greypaw and Firepaw. Who's this? He asked Greypaw, towering above them. He's the new apprentice, Greypaw mewed. He smells like a kitty pet, snorted the warrior. I was a house cat, Firepaw meowed boldly, but I'm going to train to be a warrior. Tigerclaw looked at him with sudden interest. Ah, yes, now I remember. Bluestar mentioned that she had stumbled across some stray kitty pet. So she's actually going to try you out, is she? Firepaw sat up very straight, anxious to impress this distinguished clan warrior. That's right, he mewed respectfully. Tigerclaw eyed him thoughtfully. Then I shall watch your progress with interest. Firepaw puffed his chest out proudly as Tigerclaw stalked away. Do you think you liked me? I don't think Tigerclaw likes any apprentices, whispered Greypaw. Just then, Ravenpaw stirred and twitched his ears. Has he gone? He mumbled. Who? Tigerclaw? Replied Greypaw, trotting toward him. Yep, he's gone. Hi there, Firepaw began, about to introduce himself. Go away, both of you, Spotted Leaf protested. How am I meant to help this cat with all these interruptions? She impatiently flicked her tail at Greypaw and Firepaw and pushed her way between them and her patient. Firepaw realized she was serious, despite the lively glimmer in her warm amber eyes. Come on then, Firepaw, mewed Greypaw. I'll show you around. See you later, Ravenpaw. The two cats left Spotted Leaf with Ravenpaw and walked across the clearing. Greypaw looked thoughtful. He was clearly taking his duties as a guide very seriously. You know the high rock already, he began, flicking his tail toward the big, smooth rock. Bluestar always addresses the clan from there. Her den is down there. He lifted his nose toward a hollow in the side of the high rock. Her den was carved out many moons ago by an ancient stream. Hanging lichen draped the entrance, sheltering the leader's nest from the wind and rain. The warriors sleep over there, Greypaw went on. Firepaw followed him to a large bush a few paces away from the high rock. There was a clear view from here right down to the gorse entrance into the camp. The branches of the bush hung low, but Firepaw could see a sheltered space inside where the warriors made their nests. The senior warriors sleep nearest the center, where it's the warmest, explained Greypaw. They usually share their fresh kill together over by that clump of nettles. The younger warriors eat nearby. Sometimes they are invited to join the senior warriors for eating, which is a big honor. What about the other clan cats? Firepaw asked, fascinated, but feeling rather overwhelmed by all the traditions and rituals of clan life. Well, the queens share warrior quarters when they work as warriors, but when they are expecting kits or nursing them, they stay in a nest near the nursery. The elders have their own place on the other side of the clearing. Come on, I'll show you. Firepaw trotted after Greypaw across the clearing and past the shadowy corner where Spotted Leaf had her den. They stopped beside a fallen tree that sheltered a patch of lush grass. Crouching among the soft greenery were 4 elderly cats tucking into a plump young rabbit. Dustpaw and Sandpaw would have brought them that, whispered Greypaw. One of the apprentice's duties is catching fresh kill for the elders. Hello, youngster, one of the elders greeted Greypaw. Gaypaw? Fuck! Share tongues is quite a way to phrase that, yeah. Hello, Small Ear, mewed Greypaw, nodding respectfully. This must be your new apprentice, Firepaw, isn't it? Meowed a second Tom. His patchy fur was dark brown, and there was only a stump where his tail should have been. That's right, Firepaw replied, copying Greypaw's polite nod. I'm Half-Tail, purred the brown Tom. Welcome to the clan. Have you two eaten? Meowed Small Ear. Firepaw and Greypaw both shook their heads. Well, there's enough here. Dustpaw and Sandpaw are turning into fine hunters. Would you mind if these youngsters shared a mouse, One-Eye? The pale grey queen who lay beside him shook her head. Firepaw noticed one of her eyes was clouded and sightless. What about you, Dappletail? The other elder, a tortoiseshell she-cat with a grey muzzle, meowed in a voice cracked with age. Of course not. Thank you, mewed Greypaw eagerly. He stepped forward and took a large mouse from the pile of prey, then dropped it at Firepaw's feet. Still haven't tasted mouse? He asked. No, Firepaw admitted. He suddenly felt excited by the warm smells that were rising from this piece of fresh kill. His whole body quivered at the thought of sharing his first real food as a clan member. In that case, you can have the first bite. Just save me some. Greypaw dipped his head and stood back to give Firepaw room. Firepaw crouched down and took a large bite from the mouse. It was juicy and tender, and sang with the flavors of the forest. What do you think? Asked Greypaw. Fantastic, mumbled Greypaw, his mouth still full. Move over then, mewed Greypaw, stepping forward and bending his head to take a bite. As the two apprentices shared the mouse, they listened to the elders talk amongst themselves. How long before Bluestar appoints a new deputy? Asked Small Ear. What did you say, Small Ear? Mewed One-Eye. I think your hearing has become as poor as your eyesight, snapped Small Ear impatiently. I said, how long before Bluestar appoints a new deputy? One Eye ignored Small Ear's irritated reply and spoke instead to the Tortoiseshell Queen. Dappletail, do you remember the day many moons ago when Blue Star herself was appointed deputy? Oh, God. Dappletail mewed earnestly. Oh, yes, it was not long after she lost her kits. She'll not be happy to be appointing a new deputy, Small Ear observed. Redtail served her long and well, but she'll need to make up her mind quickly, She'll need to make up her mind quickly. According to clan custom, oh God, the choice has to be made before Moon High after the death of the old deputy. At least this time the choice is obvious, meowed Halftail. Firepaw raised his head and looked around the clearing. Who could Halftail mean? To Firepaw, all the warriors looked worthy of becoming deputy. Perhaps he meant Tiger Claw. After all, he had avenged Redtail's death. Tiger Claw was sitting not far off, his ears angled toward the elder's conversation. As Firepaw stretched his tongue to lick the last traces of mouse from his whiskers, Blue Star's voice called from the high rock. Redtail's body still lay in the clearing below, pale gray in the fading light. A new deputy must be appointed, she meowed. But first, let us give thanks to StarClan for the life of Redtail. Tonight he sits with his fellow warriors among the stars. Silence fell as all the cats looked up into the sky, which was beginning to darken as evening crept over the forest. And now I shall name ThunderClan's new deputy, Blue Star continued. I say these words before the body of Redtail, so that his spirit may hear and approve of my choice. Firepaw looked at Tiger Claw. He couldn't help noticing the hunger in the big warrior's amber eyes as he stared up at the high rock. Lionheart, meowed Blue Star, will be the new deputy of ThunderClan. Firepaw was curious to see Tiger Claw's reaction, but the Dark Warrior's face revealed nothing as he moved to congratulate Lionheart with a nudge so hearty that it almost pushed the golden tabby off balance. Why didn't she make Tiger Claw deputy? Firepaw whispered to Greypaw. Probably because Lionheart has been a warrior longer, so he has a lot more experience, Greypaw murmured back, still looking up at Blue Star. Blue Star spoke again. Redtail was also mentor to young Dustpaw. Since there must be no delay in the training of our apprentices, I shall appoint Dustpaw's new mentor immediately. Darkstripe, you are ready for your first apprentice, so you will continue Dustpaw's training. You had a fine mentor in Tiger Claw, and I expect you to pass on some of the excellent skills you were taught. The tabby warrior swelled with pride as he showed his acceptance with a solemn nod. He strode over to Dustpaw, bent his head, and rather awkwardly touched noses with his new apprentice. Dustpaw flicked his tail respectfully, but his eyes were still dull with grief for his lost mentor. Blue Star raised her voice. I shall keep a vigil with Redtail's body tonight, before we bury him at sunrise. She jumped down from this high rock and walked over to lie beside Redtail's body once more. Many of the other cats joined her, Dustpaw and Small Ear among them too. Should we sit with them too? Firepaw suggested. He had to admit the idea didn't appeal to him much. It had been a busy day, and he was beginning to feel tired. All he wanted to do was to find somewhere warm and dry to curl up and sleep. Greypaw shook his head. No, only those who are closest to Redtail will share his final night. I'll show you where we sleep. The apprentice's den is over here. Firepaw followed Greypaw to a thick bush of ferns that lay behind a mossy tree stump. All the apprentices share their fresh kill by this stump, Greypaw told him. How many apprentices are there? Firepaw asked. Not as many as usual, just me, you, Ravenpaw, Dustpaw, and Sandpaw. As Greypaw and Firepaw settled themselves beside the tree stump, a young she-cat crawled out from beneath the ferns. Her coat was ginger, like Firepaw's, but much paler, with barely visible stripes of darker fur. So here comes the new apprentice, she meowed, narrowing her eyes. Hello, Firepaw mewed. The young cat sniffed rudely. He smells like a kitty pet. Don't tell me I'm going to have to share my nest with that revolting stench. Firepaw felt rather taken aback. Since his fight with Longtail, all the cats had been quite friendly. Maybe they had just been distracted by Ravenpaw's news, he thought. You'll have to excuse Sandpaw, apologized Greypaw. I think she must have a furball stuck somewhere. She's not usually this bad-tempered. Psst, spat Sandpaw crossly. Hold on, youngsters. The deep voice of Whitestorm sounded behind the apprentices. Sandpaw, as my apprentice, I expected you to be a little bit more welcoming to this newcomer. Sandpaw held up her head and looked defiant. I'm sorry, Whitestorm, she purred, not sounding sorry at all. I just didn't expect to be training with a kitty pet, that's all. I'm sure you'll get used to it, Sandpaw, meowed Whitestorm calmly. Now it's getting late, and the training starts early tomorrow. You three should get some sleep. He gave Sandpaw a stern look, and she nodded obediently. As she walked off, she spun around and vanished into the clumps of ferns, sniffing once more as she brushed past Firepaw. With a flick of his tail, Greypaw invited Firepaw to follow him and led the way after Sandpaw. Inside the sleeping area, the ground was lined with soft moss, and the pale moonlight turned everything a delicate shade of green. The air was fragrant with fern scent and warmer than outside. Where do I sleep? Firepaw asked. Anywhere, just so long as it's not near me, snarled Sandpaw, who was prodding some moss with her paw. Greypaw and Firepaw exchanged glances, but said nothing. Firepaw raked together a pile of moss with his claws. When he had gathered his bed into a cozy nest, he circled it until he was comfortable and settled down. His whole body felt drowsy with contentment. This was his home now. He was a member of ThunderClan. Wow! Holy shit! Lemonade! Thank you for the 5 months! Very epic of you. Touching noses? Yeah! That's what they go, touch noses. Here, let's draw some new cats, shall we? There's Longtail. Let's draw, this is, that's Sandpaw. This is what I think of Sandpaw. She just kind of sucks. Sandpaw. And then, Ravenpaw. There's my guy Ravenpaw. That's what he looks like. Ravenpaw. Yeah, new cats. Damn, I mean, she's just in this book, she gets a personality eventually, but also these are books for children, so you have to keep that in mind. But, like, in this book, for some fucking reason, she just is nothing but mean. She's just mean. Okay. I think after this chapter, we'll call it a night. 5 chapters in, that's not bad. We're making good pace, guys. Chapter 5. Hey, Firepaw, wake up! Greypaw's meow broke into Firepaw's dream. He had been chasing a squirrel up and up into the topmost branches of a tall oak. Training begins at sunrise. Dustpaw and Sandpaw are already up, Greypaw added urgently. Firepaw stretched sleepily, then remembered. Today was his first day of training. He leaped to his paws, his drowsiness evaporated as excitement surged through his veins. Greypaw was giving himself a hasty wash. Between licks, he meowed. I've just spoken to Lionheart. Ravenpaw won't be training with us till his wound is better. He'll probably stay at Spotted Leaf's den for another day or two. Dustpaw and Sandpaw are on hunting duty, so Lionheart thought you and I could train with him in Tigerclaw this morning. We better hurry, though, he added. They'll be waiting. Greypaw led Firepaw quickly through the gorse entrance of the camp and up the side of the rock-strewn valley. As they climbed over the crest of the ravine, a cool breeze ruffled their fur. Fat, white clouds raced across the blue sky overhead. Firepaw felt fierce joy well up inside him as he followed Greypaw down the tree-shaded slope and into a sandy hollow. Tiger Claw and Lionheart were indeed waiting, sitting a few tail lengths apart on the sun-warmed sand. In the future, I expect you both to be punctual, growled Tiger Claw. Don't be too severe, Tiger Claw. It was a busy night last night. I expect they were tired, meowed Lionheart gently. You have not yet been assigned a mentor, Firepaw, he went on. For now, Tiger Claw and I will share your training. Firepaw nodded enthusiastically, his tail held high, unable to disguise his delight at having two such great warriors as his mentors. Come, meowed Tiger Claw impatiently. Today we are going to show you the edges of our territory, so that you know where you will be hunting and what boundaries you need to protect. Greypaw, it won't do you any harm to remind yourself of the clan's outer limits. Without another word, Tiger Claw leapt up and bounded out of the sandy hollow. Lionheart nodded to Greypaw, and they took off with equal speed. Firepaw scrambled after them, his paws slipping on the soft sand. The trees were thick in this part of the forest, birch and ash trees overshadowed by mighty oaks. The ground was carpeted with crisp, dead leaves that rustled between their paws. Tiger Claw paused to spray his scent on a thick clump of ferns. The other cats stopped beside him. There's a two-leg path here, murmured Lionheart. Use your nose, Firepaw. Can you smell anything? Firepaw sniffed. There was a faint scent of a two-leg and the stronger smell of a dog, familiar to him from his old home. A two-leg has walked his dog along here, but they are gone now, he mewed. Good, meowed Lionheart. Do you think it is safe to cross? Firepaw sniffed again. The odors were weak and seemed overlaid with fresher forest smells. Yes, he replied. Tiger Claw nodded, and the four cats stalked out from beneath the ferns and crossed the sharp stones of narrow two-legged path. The trees beyond were pine. They grew tall and straight, row after row. It was easy to walk silently here. The ground was thick with layers of dead needles, which prickled against Firepaw's pads, but felt spongy underneath. There was no undergrowth here to hide in, and Firepaw sensed tension in the other cats as they stalked unprotected between the tree trunks. Two legs put these trees here, mewed Tiger Claw. They cut them down with foul-smelling creatures which spew enough fumes to make a kit go blind. Then they take the fallen trees to the tree-cut place that lies near here. Firepaw stopped and listened for the roar of the tree-eater, which he had heard before. The tree-cut place will be silent for a few moons more, until the time of Greenleaf, explained Greypaw, noticing his pause. The cats padded on through the pine forest. Two-leg place lies in that direction, meowed Tiger Claw, flicking his tail to one side. No doubt you can smell it, Firepaw. Today, however, we will head the other way. Eventually, they reached another two-leg path that marked the far edge of the pine forest. They quickly crossed over into the safe bushes of oak woods beyond. But Firepaw still sensed anxiety with the other cats. We're approaching RiverClan territory, whispered Greypaw. The sunning rocks are over there. He pointed with his soft muzzle to a treeless mound of boulders. Firepaw felt his fur stand on end. This is where Redtail had been slain. Lionheart stopped by a flat gray rock. This is the boundary between ThunderClan and RiverClan territory. RiverClan rules the hunting grounds beside the great river, he meowed. Breathe deeply, Firepaw. The pungent smell of unfamiliar cats hit the roof of Firepaw's mouth. He was surprised how different it smelled from the warm cat scents of the ThunderClan camp. And he was also surprised to realize just how familiar and comforting the ThunderClan scents seemed to him already. That is the smell of RiverClan, Tiger Claw growled beside him. Remember it well. It will be stronger at the boundary, because their warriors will have scent-marked the trees along there. With these words, the dark tabby lifted his tail and sprayed his own mark on the flat rock. We'll follow this boundary line as it leads straight to the four trees, Lionheart meowed. He set off quickly, away from Sunning Rocks, followed by Tiger Claw. Greypaw and Firepaw trotted after them. What is four trees? Firepaw panted. It is where the territories of all four clans meet, replied Greypaw. There are 4 great oak trees there, as old as the clans. Be quiet, ordered Tiger Claw. Don't forget how close we are to enemy territory. The two apprentices fell silent, and Firepaw concentrated on walking silently. They crossed a shallow stream, keeping their paws dry by leaping from boulder to boulder across the pebbly riverbed. By the time they reached Four Trees, Firepaw was feeling completely out of breath, and his paws ached. He wasn't used to traveling so far and so fast. He was quite relieved when Lionheart and Tigerclaw led them out of the thick wood and stopped at the brow of a bush-covered slope. It was sun-high now. The clouds had cleared and the wind had dropped. Below, in the dazzling sunlight, stood four enormous oaks, their dark green crowns reaching almost to the top of the steep slope. Fuck me. As Greypaw told you, meowed Lionheart to Firepaw, this is Four Trees, where the territories of all four clans meet. Wind Clan governs the high grounds ahead of us where the sun sets. You won't be able to catch their set today. The wind is blowing toward them, but you'll learn it soon enough. And Shadow Clan holds power over there, in the darkest part of the forest, added Greypaw, flicking his head sideways. The elders say that the cold winds from the north blow over the Shadow Clan cats and chill their hearts. So many clans, Firepaw exclaimed, and so well organized, he added to himself, remembering Smudge's lurid tales of wild cats wreaking terror in the forest. You see now why prey is so precious, meowed Lionheart, why we must fight to protect what little we have. But that seems foolish. Why can't the clans work together and share their hunting grounds instead of fighting each other? Firepaw suggested boldly. A shocked silence greeted his words. Tigerclaw was the first to reply. That is treacherous thinking, kitty pet, he snapped. Don't be too fierce, Tigerclaw, warned Lionheart. The ways of the clans are new to this apprentice. He looked at Firepaw. You speak from your heart, young Firepaw. This will make you a strong warrior one day. Tigerclaw growled, or it might make him give in to kitty pet weakness right at the moment of attack. Lionheart glanced briefly at Tigerclaw before he continued. The four clans do come together peacefully. In a gathering each moon here, he bent his head toward the four mighty oaks below, is where they meet. The truce lasts for as long as the moon is at its fullest. Then there must be a meeting very soon, Firepaw suggested, remembering how bright the moonlight had been the night before. Indeed there is, answered Lionheart, sounding impressed. Tonight, in fact. The gatherings are very important because they allow the clans to come together in peace for one night. But you must understand that longer alliances bring more trouble than they're worth. It is our clan loyalty that makes us strong. Tigerclaw meowed in agreement. If you weaken that loyalty, you weaken our chances of survival. Firepaw nodded. I understand, he mewed. Come on, meowed Lionheart, standing up. Let's keep moving. They paced along the ridge of the valley where Four Trees stood. Now they were heading away from the sun as it began to sink in the afternoon sky. They crossed the stream at a place where it was narrow enough to leap over in one jump. Firepaw sniffed the air. A new cat scent touched his mouth glands, strong and sour. Which clan is that? He asked. Shadow Clan, answered Tigerclaw grimly. We are traveling along their border. Keep your wits about you, Firepaw. Fresher scents mean that a Shadow Clan patrol isn't in the area. As Firepaw nodded, he heard a new noise. He stiffened, but the other cats kept up their pace, heading straight for the ominous rumbling. What's that? He called, trotting to catch up with them. You'll see in a moment, replied Lionheart. Firepaw peered through the trees ahead. They seemed to be getting thinner, letting in a broad band of sunlight. Are we at the edge of the woods? He asked. Then he stopped and took a deep breath. The green forest scents were overlaid with other strange, dark smells. This time it was not cat scent, but an odor that reminded him of his old two-leg home, and the rumbling that was getting louder, a ceaseless roar that made the ground tremble and ached in Firepaw's ears. This is the Thunder Path, meowed Tigerclaw. Firepaw followed as Lionheart led them towards the edge of the forest. Then he sat down and all four cats looked out. Firepaw could see a gray path like a river, cutting its way through the forest. The hard gray stone stretched ahead of him so far that the trees on the other side seemed blurred and tiny. Firepaw shuddered at the bitter smell that rose from the path. Next moment he leapt back, his fur bristling as a gigantic monster roared past. The branches of the trees on either side flapped madly in the wind that chased the speeding monster. Firepaw stared at the other cats, his eyes wide, unable to speak. He had seen paths like this before near his old two-leg home, but never this wide, nor with monsters so swift and fierce. Scared me too the first time, remarked Greypaw, but at least it helps to keep Shadow Clan warriors from crossing into our territory. The Thunder Path runs for many paw steps along our boundary line, and don't worry, those monsters never seem to leave the Thunder Path. You'll be fine as long as you don't go too near. It's time we return to camp, meowed Lionheart. You've seen all of our boundaries now, but we'll avoid snake rocks, even though the way around is longer. An untrained apprentice would be easy prey for an adder, and I expect you're getting tired, Firepaw. Firepaw couldn't help feeling relieved at the thought of returning to the camp. His head was spinning with all the new smells and sights. And Lionheart was right. He was tired and hungry. He fell behind Greypaw as the cats turned away from the Thunder Path and headed back into the forest. The dewy scents of the evening filled the air as Firepaw made his way through the gorse entrance into the ThunderClan camp. Freshkill was waiting for them. Firepaw and Greypaw took their share from the pile that lay in the shady part of the clearing and carried it to the tree stump outside their quarters. Dustpaw and Sandpaw were already there, munching hungrily. "Hi there, kitty pet," mewed Dustpaw, narrowing his eyes scornfully at Firepaw. "Enjoy the food we caught for you." "Who knows? You might even learn to catch your own one day," sneered Sandpaw. "Are you two still on hunting duty?" asked Greypaw innocently. "Never mind. We've been patrolling our territory borders. You'll be glad to know all is safe." "I'm sure the other clans are terrified when they smelled you two coming," yelled Dustpaw. "They didn't even dare show their faces," retorted Greypaw, unable to hide his anger. "Well, we'll ask them tonight when we see them at the clan gathering," mewed Sandpaw. "Are you going?" Firepaw blurted out, impressed in spite of the apprentice's hostility. "Of course," replied Dustpaw loftily. "It's a great honor, you know. But don't worry, we'll tell you all about it in the morning." Greypaw ignored Dustpaw's gloating and started eating his fresh kill. Firepaw was hungry too and crouched down to eat. He couldn't help feeling a twinge of envy that Dustpaw and Sandpaw were actually going to meet the other clans tonight. A loud call from Bluestar made Firepaw look up. He watched several of the clan warriors and elders gathering in the clearing. It was time for the clan party to leave for the gathering. Dustpaw and Sandpaw leapt to their feet and trotted off to join the other cats. "Bye, you two," called Sandpaw over her shoulder. "Have a nice, quiet evening." The assembled cats stalked out of the camp entrance in a single file, with Bluestar at the head. Her fur glowed like silver in the moonlight, and she looked calm and confident as she led her clan to the brief truce between old enemies. "Have you ever been to a gathering?" Firepaw asked Greypaw wistfully. "Not yet," replied Greypaw, crunching loudly on a mouse bone. "But it won't be long now, just you wait. All the apprentices get to go sometime." The two apprentices ate the rest of their meal in silence. When they had finished, Greypaw wandered over to Firepaw and began to groom his head. Together they washed, sharing tongues as Firepaw had seen the other cats do when he first arrived. Then, tired after the long trek, they pushed their way into their den and settled down in their nests and quickly fell asleep. The following morning, Greypaw and Firepaw arrived early at the sandy hollow. They had crept out before Sandpaw and Dustpaw woke. Firepaw had been eager to hear about the gathering, but Greypaw dragged them away. "You'll hear all about it later, if I know those two," he had mewed. It promised to be another warm day, and this time Ravenpaw came to join them. Thanks to Spotted Leaf, his wound was healing well. Greypaw played around, scooping leaves into the air and leaping after them. Firepaw watched, his tail twitching with amusement. Ravenpaw sat quietly at one side of the hollow, looking tense and unhappy. "Cheer up, Ravenpaw," called Greypaw. "I know you don't like training, but you're usually not this miserable." The sense of Lionheart and Tigerclaw warned the apprentices of their approach, and Ravenpaw mewed hastily. "I suppose I'm just worried about my shoulder getting hurt again." At that moment, Tigerclaw emerged from the bushes, closely followed by Lionheart. "Warriors should suffer their pain silently," growled Tigerclaw. He looked Ravenpaw straight in the eye. "You need to learn to hold your tongue." Ravenpaw flinched and dropped his eyes to the ground. "Tigerclaw's a bit grumpy today," Greypaw whispered into Firepaw's ears. Lionheart glanced at his apprentice sternly and announced, "Today we are going to practice stalking. Now, there's a big difference between creeping up on a rabbit and creeping up on a mouse. Can any of you tell me why?" Firepaw had no idea. Ravenpaw seemed to have taken Tiger Claw's comment to Heart and was holding his tongue. Come on, snorted Tiger Claw impatiently. It was Grey Paw who answered. Because a rabbit will smell you before he sees you, but a mouse will feel your paw steps through the ground before he even smells you. Exactly, Grey Paw. So what must you bear in mind when hunting mice? Step lightly, Firepaw suggested. Lionheart looked approvingly at him. Quite right, Firepaw. You must take all your weight into your haunches so that your paws make no impact on the forest floor. Let's try it. Firepaw watched as Greypaw and Ravenpaw immediately dropped into a stalking crouch. Nicely done, Greypaw, meowed Lionheart, as the two apprentices began to move forward stealthily. Keep your rear down, Ravenpaw. You look like a duck, spat Tiger Claw. Now you try it, Firepaw. Firepaw crouched down and began to creep across the forest floor. He felt himself fall instinctively into the right position, and he stepped forward as silently and lightly as he could. He felt a glow of pride that his muscles responded so smoothly. Well, it's obvious you've known nothing but softness, growled Tiger Claw. You stalk like a lumbering kitty pet. Do you think dinner is going to come and lie down in your food dish and wait to be eaten? Firepaw sat up quickly as Tiger Claw spoke, a little taken aback by his harsh words. He listened carefully to the warrior, determined to get everything right. His pace and forward movement will come later, but his crouch was perfectly balanced, Lionheart pointed out mildly. Which is better than Ravenpaw, I suppose, complained Tiger Claw. He cast a scornful look at the black cat. Even after 2 moons of training, you're still putting all your weight up to your left side. Ravenpaw looked even more dejected, and Firepaw couldn't help himself from blurting out, His injury is bothering him, that's all. Tiger Claw whipped his head around and glared at Firepaw. Injuries are a fact of life. He should be able to adapt. Even you, Firepaw, have learned something this morning. If Ravenpaw picked up things as quickly as you, he'd be a credit to me instead of embarrassment. Imagine being shown up by a kitty pet. He spat angrily at his apprentice. Firepaw felt his fur prickle with discomfort. He couldn't meet Ravenpaw's eyes, so he looked down at his paws. Well, I'm more lopsided than a one-legged badger, mewed Greypaw, breaking off from his careful stalking to stagger comically across the clearing. I think I'll have to settle for hunting stupid mice. They won't stand a chance. I'll just wander up to them and sit on them till they surrender. Concentrate, young Greypaw. This is no time for your jokes, meowed Lionheart sternly. Perhaps you might focus your mind better if you try out your stalking for real. All 3 apprentices looked up brightly. I want each one of you to try catching real prey, meowed Lionheart. Ravenpaw, you look beside the owl tree. Greypaw, there might be something in that big bramble patch over there. And you, Firepaw, follow the rabbit track over that rise. You'll find the dry bed of a winter stream. You may find something there. The 3 apprentices bounded away, even Ravenpaw finding some extra energy for this challenge. With the blood pounding in his ears, Firepaw crept slowly up over the rise. Sure enough, a stream bed cut through the trees ahead of him. In leaf fall, he guessed, it would carry the rainwater away from the forest and into the great river that cut through RiverClan territory. Now it was dry. Firepaw crept quietly down the bank and crouched on its sandy floor. Every sense felt on fire with tension. Silently, he scanned the empty stream for signs of life. He watched for any tiny movement, his mouth open so he could pick up the smallest scent. His ears twisted forward. Then he smelled mouse. He recognized the odor instantly, remembering his first taste the night before. Wild energy surged through him, but he remained motionless, trying desperately to pinpoint the prey. He strained his ears forward until he picked up the rapid pulsing of a tiny mouse heart. Then a flash of brown caught his eye. The creature was scrambling through the long grass that draped the edges of the stream. Firepaw shifted closer, remembering to keep his weight on his haunches until he was within striking distance. Then he pushed back hard on his hind paws and sprang, kicking up sand as he rose. The mouse raced away, but Firepaw was quicker. He scooped it into the air with one paw, threw it onto the sandy stream bed, and lunged on top of it. He killed it quickly with one sharp bite. Firepaw carefully lifted the warm body between his teeth and returned with his tail held high to the hollow where Tiger Claw and Lionheart waited. He had made his first kill. He was a true ThunderClan apprentice now. Okay, I think that's where we're gonna stop. What did you guys think? How are we feeling? Cool? Epic? really awesome. Asleep, perhaps? Hold on, let me get some tea. Oh, my throat's pretty dry after that. Pretty awesome, right? Loving it, thank you, hell yeah. There's Firepaw with his silly little mouse. Cool. Alright, awesome. Well, that's gonna be it for tonight. I'll probably have this be, I'm gonna try and alternate reading nights with mini paint Mondays. So we won't pick up until after next week, if that's cool with everybody. But if you really liked the read along, we're doing Discord exclusive read alongs. Starting this Sunday. We're calling them Spooky Sundays. So instead of reading a book, we're reading creepypastas and SCP entries, shit like that. So if that's something that you'd be interested in, go ahead and join the the Discord server. You can suggest creepypastas and stuff to read. I have a list going on there, and I'm gonna try and get through all of them. So yeah, if you enjoyed this, hopefully you guys are gonna like Spooky Sundays. That'll be fun. The bot never wants to work. Let me see if it works on YouTube. Nope. I will just link it myself. Hold. Let me get this on here. And then a doink. Ah! Discord. There you go. If you guys want to join for Spooky Sundays, join there. They're Discord exclusive. I will never be doing them on stream, only for people in Discord. But we're gonna go through the entire Warrior Cats series on stream. So, I hope you guys are looking forward to that. It's not furry! Anyway, everybody have a good night. I am gonna, go rest my voice. But thank you guys for joining and hanging out and listening to me yap about cats. This was very fun. Thank you guys for agreeing to let me do this. Alright? Alright. I will see you guys later, okay? No, stop! Okay, shut up. I'm not, okay, no further comments. Bye, everybody.
Furry.
Bye!
Furry.
Bye! Bye! Bye-bye!